being here. We will jump right in, so we have plenty of time to get through this training and also plenty of time to connect. So my name is Lisa Trope. I am one of 3 engagement specialists with Sun. So I work in Arizona, Colorado, Texas, and Minnesota. And essentially I work on our trainings and also in working to engage our supporters and interns on both our co-op work as well as our policy work. My background is in community organizing, mainly oil and gas, food and water legislation, and started at Sun about 1.5 years ago now. And Annie is also on the call, who is our director of engagement. She's going to be helping on the back end and making sure everything runs smoothly. So quickly, I would love to hear from you all. If you don't mind dropping in the chat where you're calling in from so we can get a good idea. And then also, I just like this question. We'd love to know what's your favorite part of fall or Thanksgiving. And just feel free to drop that in the chat. And I don't know if I can actually, oh, yes, I can. Technology. Oops, but that just kicked me out. Okay, so I see Minneapolis, Oakland, Rockville. I grew up in Poolsville for folks on the call from Maryland. I've actually moved around some, but Poolsville for high school. So good to see you. Hi, Rick, Denver, Indiana. Yep. Wonderful. Tucson, Potomac. There's a lot of folks from Maryland on the call. Indiana, I already said that. Berkeley. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I see I love all apple associated desserts. Love the fall leaves and smells and having a big family Thanksgiving dinner. I agree. I really love, ooh, sounds like we have kids in the background. I personally love sweet potato pie. I don't know if anyone knows of it, but it's a little weird, but it's sweet potatoes and marshmallows. And it's an interesting combination, but my grandma makes it really well. So thanks everyone for being here. We'll just briefly go through some of Zoom logistics. You probably know how to use Zoom by now, but just in case. So you can mute and unmute in the left-hand corner. We ask that you stay muted unless you are speaking. Also, start and stop video in that corner. We'd love to see you and connect with you, but also understand that you should just do what you feel comfortable with. Also, the chat function, which seems everyone was able to find, feel free to keep that open so you can view, send, and receive messages from everyone. And then finally, gallery versus speaker view. So that should be in the upper right-hand corner. If you want to just be seeing the speaker on your screen, you can change to that. If you want to be seeing more folks, you can change it to gallery view. And as always, it's just good to make sure that we are coming to the space nice and in a respectful way. So we just like to go briefly through some meeting agreements. Of course, being respectful and courteous with everyone else on the call. Please be mindful of everyone's feelings. A really important one, step up and step back. So if you are someone who tends to often speak up or ask a lot of questions, that's great. But if you have recognized that you've been speaking a good amount or asking a lot of questions, taking a moment to step back for folks who may be less likely to speak up, giving them the space to do so. With that being said, please don't be shy. We do want to hear from you all. And if there are any other norms that you would like to be a part of this meeting, feel free to drop them in the chat and I can read them out loud. Okay, so for those of you who are new to Sun, I probably should have asked that at the beginning, but we'll just briefly go through our theory of change. So at Solar United Neighbors, we work to go solar, join together and fight for our energy rights. So what that looks like is we work with communities and cities across the country, and we have individuals join our solar co-op, which is free to join. These individuals can get their answers questioned about solar, or families. They can figure out if solar will work on their home. And then from there, if they decide to install solar, they can do so at a discounted rate. We have a volunteer steering committee that is created for each one of our co-ops, and that steering committee gets to decide which installer that ultimately is chosen. And then from there, if you decide you want to install, you can do so with the co-op. But the important thing is that we don't only want to help folks go solar, but we also want to make sure we're joining together to fight for our energy rights. So at the end of the day, it is incredibly important to be bringing more solar onto the grid, but if we don't have the policies in place to make it accessible to everyone, then that's a big problem. So we work on both playing defense against anti-solar policies as well as playing offense for pro-solar policies. So I would love to hear from you all. What is one of the most motivating or inspiring stories you have heard? You can either feel free to drop this in the chat or unmute yourself, and love to hear from you. And I'll give you all a moment, because it took me a moment earlier today to think through some inspiring stories for myself. It does not have to be around solar. It can be any story. And you can feel free to unmute if you feel comfortable with that. If not, you can drop that story in the chat. Anyone have a story to share? If not, I can share one.
Well, perhaps it's easier just to do this rather than just typing away. If you get a minute here.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. I'm an electric car driver. I've been driving an EV since 2015. I rent a house, so unfortunately there is no grid-connected solar on the roof here. But I have a nice, interesting southern exposure, and I'm kind of a crafty person with electronics and such. And I'm going to be building a solar generator, which is basically a box that will have a battery in it, a lithium iron phosphate battery. I'll be getting probably about 500 watts of small panels, which unfortunately cost a little bit more than these big, beautiful ones that you see on the grid or on people's rooftops. And I'm going to be putting together a portable system. I'll be able to take it with me in my car. I can make my famous espresso coffees with my little electric coffee flask, and even have the ability to charge my car, trickle charge, if you will. So that's where I'm at the moment.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that you also mentioned that you're going to be able to make your coffee with this battery as well as the solar. So that's amazing.
It should be powerful enough to do that and more. It'll probably be grid, not really grid connected per se, but it'll have a transfer switch. So I'll be able to plug in, and on a cloudy day, I'll be able to use up what's in the battery if it's not being recharged from solar, but be able to pull from the grid, so that I'm not out of luck completely. But that's what I'm building.
Very nice. Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Is there anyone else that'd like to share a motivating or inspiring story they've heard recently?
I can share. So I don't know if anybody else listens to the podcast Armchair Expert, but they did like a sub series and all about sort of influential women. And I just listened to the one on Oprah, and I'm not really familiar with her. I never watched her show other than knowing that she's like a super powerhouse. So listening to her story and sort of what she overcame throughout her life to become this powerhouse was just really inspiring and motivating. And yet also she still struggles. So, she struggles with saying no, she struggles with getting work done, she struggles with taking care of herself. So it was also super relatable for being such a, public figure. So it was just definitely worth a listen if you enjoy podcasts.
Thanks, Annie. I don't also know much about her, but it sounds really good. All right, well, we will continue. So for those of you that maybe thought of a story or an experience you've had but didn't feel like sharing, just maybe taking a moment to think about what made that story stand out to you. And you can also feel free to drop any of these ideas in the chat. I know for me personally, and for the examples, it's usually some kind of imagery. So for example, being able to make your coffee or around describing installing solar in your house, what that would look like. It also often can come down to community, connection, to feeling like there's a structure to the story that is relatable and one that we can move through and understand. Those are often, at least for me, the things that stand out the most around what makes a story stand out. Okay, and so now we're going to launch a poll where all you have to do is click, and we'd love to hear why do you love solar, and if the poll should be popping up on your screen in a second, so feel free to fill it out. And if there isn't an option on there that feels aligned for you, feel free to also drop in the chat why you love solar. And this is to help us start thinking about that as we are going to be practicing our stories later. I'm not seeing a poll, but maybe it's showing up on your side, Annie.
Yeah, it is. People are answering.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. I don't know why I'm having some issues with my tech. And Annie, once you close that out, would you mind sharing what the results are?
Of course.
Thank you.
10 more seconds if anybody else hasn't answered yet. All right. Okay. Can you see the results?
No, I can't.
Oh.
But maybe everyone else can. I don't know.
So yeah, our big winner was helping to combat climate change with 67%, followed by helping individuals and families saving money. And then lastly was putting electricity production into the hands of people. So other got nothing, and air and water pollution didn't get anything either.
Very interesting. Thank you for sharing. Keeping this in your back pocket for this training so we can start thinking through our message as we share our story. Oh, excuse me. All right. So when do we tell stories? All the time. So, you know, when you're talking with friends, family, coworkers about your day, about something that you've been struggling with, about a victory, usually in some form or another, we are telling a story. We're giving a location. We're talking about who was there. We're talking about how we felt. But for the purpose of this training, we're going to be focusing on solar. So when are we often telling a story? When we're working with Solar United Neighbors or advocating for solar energy. So this can be when we're having conversations with other Sun supporters, it can be lobbying our legislator, making phone calls, drafting emails, presenting to partners, and there are a bunch of other ways. And if you have a specific scenario where you've shared a story and you want to drop in the chat, feel free to do so. But essentially, we have the opportunity to be sharing our story regularly, whether it's lobbying a legislator or speaking with a neighbor or even drafting an email. So why is it important or helpful to prep sharing your story? Telling our stories can be really powerful. It allows us to feel connected to other people. And it also really allows us to advocate for the issues and things that we care about most. So taking some time to think through your story and think through how you're going to present an issue gives you more confidence in talking about a campaign or a co-op. It also allows you to more effectively educate either an individual or a group of people. Let's say you're speaking to a neighborhood association or a local organization, and allows you to have a clear, compelling, and concise message. So it can be easy to ramble and to not be really clear, even if we're passionate. So this gives us the opportunity to be really clear, concise, and compelling. So with that, this is a really powerful structure. We're telling an impactful solar story. Something that I always think of with this structure is back when I was in university, there were professors that you went into class, you sat down, it was really easy to understand them. You left the class understanding the topic and the concept that you're supposed to learn. And then there were other professors that kind of jumped all over the place. And usually, at least for me, I'm sure maybe others have experienced this, you left class having a basic idea of what you were supposed to learn, but not really understanding it. And so a structure like this can really help us be concise and effective in the way that we communicate. So IPSUAP, which is a kind of weird acronym, but it stands for Introduction, Problem, Solution, Urgency, Action. And this structure can be used not only for sharing your personal story, but also can be used for telling a story around a specific issue or a campaign. So I'll give some examples shortly. With this, it's really important to paint a picture. So imagery and having your audience really be there with you is a really great way to be a powerful storyteller. So it's great to know the facts, you know, how many kilowatts you've installed and so on, but what else can you add to your story to really make it impactful? And also, why do you care about this issue? How does your story connect to the person you're speaking with? So an example here is if you, let's say we're talking to an environmental group, it'd be more likely you were probably talking about climate change, air, water, the environment, conservation, versus a veterans group, right? You might be talking more about finances, etc. It depends on the group. It doesn't mean that you don't touch base on, the importance of moving towards a clean energy economy and rooftop solar, but just thinking through who your audience is and what's going to be most impactful for them when you're speaking with them. This can also be at an individual level. So if you're speaking with a neighbor and you kind of know their passions or why they might be motivated around a topic like this, then you can be making sure that you're talking about those aspects. So introduction, who are you? Why are you talking to me? Do you represent a group, a solar homeowner? Are you a concerned citizen, and so on? So even in calls like this, often we're sharing our stories, and it can be really easy to just jump straight in. And it's nice to often give context with, this is my name, this is where I'm calling in from. It allows other folks on the call to also get to know you a little bit better. And this also is really important for when we're speaking about co-ops or we're campaign work. So starting with, I am Lisa and I work with Solar United Neighbors, or I live in Denver, Colorado, and I'm a constituent, right? So if you were lobbying a legislator, you'd want to make it really clear that you're in your introduction, how you are relating to that legislator because you are their constituent. So taking some time to introduce yourself is important, but it can often be a piece that we just forget because we know ourselves, but that doesn't mean everyone else in the room does. So the problem, what's wrong? What's the problem? Why does it matter? And how does this problem influence your audience's values and goals? Also, what I think a reframe for this can also be, what was the catalyst? So if you are telling your own personal solar story, there's usually some kind of catalyst for why you decided to install solar. Maybe the reasoning is climate change. Maybe the reasoning is air and water pollution. Maybe it's because you're trying to save money on your electricity bill. That would be how you ideally want to start your story, allowing folks to know what your catalyst was for going solar. With that, from a bigger picture, if you're not only telling your solar story, but let's say you're working on a campaign or a co-op, you also want to be touching base on that. So an example here, right now, our state legislature is trying to take away our ability to allow individuals and families to sell excess energy back to the grid, right? So that's a problem. Another problem is HOA restrictions on solar. So let's say you're working on a campaign in your state to make sure that HOAs can't restrict individuals and families from installing solar on their homes. Making sure that it's clear right from the beginning what you were moving towards, what the problem is or what the catalyst was for you to install solar. What's the solution? Why is it feasible that we can fix this problem? How are we going to fix it? And how does it affect the audience? So sometimes it's really good, again, to be thinking about what motivates your audience, who you're speaking to, whether individually or in a group. So a few examples: we can win this fight by stopping, this bill that is not allowing community or not allowing individuals and HOAs to install solar on their homes, right? For example. Or another example is, this is why I've joined the solar co-op. Let's say your electricity, the reason why the problem and the reason why you decided to install solar was because your electricity bills were really high, and joining the solar co-op allowed you to get your questions answered and also to go solar at a discounted rate, right? So thinking through that solution piece and then also relating it back to your audience. Step 3, urgency. So we live very busy lives, and often it can be easy to think, okay, well, I'll take action on this issue, or I'll join the next co-op, right? In a month or 2 months or 3 months when I have more time. And that can be something that time can always be something that can be hard to find. So it can be really important to also, in your story or when you are advocating for these issues, talk about why it's important to, for example, be joining the co-op now, or to be taking action on a campaign now. So a few examples here around campaign work and then co-op work. So it's important to join the co-op now so that you can have time before the deadline to get all the information you need about installing, so that you can install solar at a discounted rate, so we can build the clean energy economy. Sometimes we do relaunch co-ops, for example, in a certain city, but not always. And sometimes it's a year or two out just because of our capacity. And so also, if you have a neighbor or a friend that is interested in going solar, encouraging them to do it this round, or to at least join the co-op this round to start that process, because unfortunately we don't always have the capacity to be launching another co-op in the near future. So just keeping in mind why it's important for folks to take action now, whether it's on campaign work or co-op work, can be a really impactful way to move towards more action. And of course, with these stories, you may just be, if it's your solar story, talking about your introduction, the problem or your catalyst for installing solar and the solution. Urgency and action may be a little bit less a part of this if you're just, talking casually with a friend or a family member and wanting to share more of your story. But if you're looking to take it to that next level and you're looking to advocate, adding these aspects to your story can be really powerful. And then finally, the ask. What are you asking the audience or individual to do? Why will it make a difference? So a few examples: can you join me in calling your legislator and asking to oppose or support a bill? Can you join a solar co-op, or can you join me for this next meeting? Often, for example, with our campaign work, we are testifying in front of different committees. And so this and the urgency step can be really important to make sure that you have a strong ask. So it's really easy to be lobbying a legislator or otherwise around pro-solar policy and explain your story and explain why you care about the issue, and not really end with, and this is why I'm asking you to support this bill, for example. So this is a really important aspect of making sure, if you're planning on advocating for solar policies, you're being really clear with what your final ask is of that legislator, or if that of that individual who has influence. So I just drafted an example that I thought we could compare. This is loosely based off of how Solar United Neighbors came to be. So Anya Schoolman, our executive director, her son, his name is not Brandon, but he came home from school one day after watching An Inconvenient Truth and was upset by it and asked her if they could install solar. And so she started doing research on solar and realized it was a much more complex issue than maybe expected. And there was a lot to learn, and financially it was not going to be viable at the time. This was 13 years ago, so it's a little more viable now. But that's what this is based off of. So I'm just going to read both out loud to you and just take a moment to kind of see the difference between the two based off of this structure, as well as painting a picture for your audience. So the first one is pretty straightforward. My son came home from school and watched the documentary An Inconvenient Truth. He asked me, can we go solar? I started looking into it and if our family can install solar on our home. So that's the first story. The second story, my family and I were living in Rockville, Maryland. Oops. Rockville. I know we have some folks from Rockville on the call. My family and I were living in Rockville, Maryland. We loved how we could jump on the red line, head to DC while still enjoying the slower pace of being outside the city. One day, my 12-year-old son, Brandon, came home from school and was exasperated. He threw his book bag down on the kitchen counter and explained that his class had watched An Inconvenient Truth, a documentary that dove into the dire impacts that climate change would have on our present and our future. Brandon explained that he was most surprised by learning about sea level rise and the impact that climate change would have on everyday people. This is when he asked if can we go solar? Being someone who tries my best to be cognizant of the impact we make in the world, the long nights of Google searches to install solar began. So as you can see here, you have the introduction. It kind of paints a picture for folks of who you are. And then from there, it really gives some context of what the problem is, how you felt about it, how your son felt about it, and then moving into the solution and so on. So just to give you a bit of a comparison. So final takeaways, and then we're going to allow for more time to connect here and to practice. So be yourself, be honest with your story. Paint a picture is always good, making sure that there's some visualizations involved, right? So we tend to use, as human beings, use all of our senses. And so the more that we can visualize and experience what the other person was experiencing, the more we're a part of their story as well. If you are advocating for a solar co-op and really working to promote and recruit it, or for a campaign, having a strong ask is really important because it allows folks to know what you're asking them to do. And surprisingly, it can be very easy to leave that part off. Prep and practice and have fun. So this doesn't have to be too serious. At the end of the day, it's just us connecting with one another. But this can be a nice way to feel really comfortable and confident when we are sharing our stories, whether advocating or for co-ops or otherwise. Okay, so I'm going to open up the floor. Not sure if anyone here watched Schitt's Creek, but I very much enjoyed it during the pandemic. But I would love to open it up for any questions that folks might have or comments. All right, looks like I can't see your name for some reason, but feel free to unmute. I see someone rose their
Yeah, it looks like Paul did.
Wonderful. Paul, you can feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, yes, I'm the guy from Rockville, Maryland.
Oh, look at that.
I have had solar panels on my roof since 2016, and they're great. I'm very happy with it. But whenever I mention this to the neighbors in my area, and in fact, there are very few people in my neighborhood who have solar panels, and I don't know why, but I mention this, and the first question they always ask me is, how much does it cost? What happens to your electric bill when you get solar? And the problem is, that's the hardest question to answer. Because there's so many different offers we get in the mail about different deals on electricity, because electricity can be switched from anywhere. So we're getting a lot of complexity in the costing side of things, and I'm not an accountant, and it's confusing. So how do you guys communicate in a simple way about the affordability or the cost? Now I did a PPA, so it didn't cost me anything to install the solar panels, but it's just contracts for the rate. And how do you come up with arguments for a good rate?
That's a great question. When it comes to our solar co-ops, we tend to have a better idea once the RFP, once the steering committee has been created and we've actually picked an installer, or at least we see which installers have decided that they want to be in on a bid. I know, more generally speaking, the way that I usually speak about costs is kind of just explaining like solar 101, if there is net metering in the state where someone can actually sell their electricity back to the grid. So I know when I've described it in the past, it's been something like, the nice thing about solar is that once you install it on your roof, you're able to sell any excess electricity that you don't use back to the grid. And so you can actually be having a much lower electricity bill, or possibly be making money off your electricity bill every month. Obviously, that depends on how much the person's actually using. But then the day, still explaining that process, I think, is important, because I think most folks don't actually recognize that's even a possibility. They may have heard, oh, I can save money on solar. Oh, my electricity bill might be lower, but actually sharing that, I feel, is really important. Although at the end of the day, depending on how much electricity they do use, it's hard to know. I also often will give examples of, we've worked with supporters who their electricity bill may be very low, or they might be making money off their bill. So even on our last training a few weeks ago, someone said on average their bill, I think, was like $8 to $10 a month, right? That's not always going to be the case, and we should specify that. But sharing the process of how they will be able to actually sell excess electricity they're not using back to the grid. But at the end of the day, we can't know how much electricity they use, so that we can't really answer that question directly. And then when it comes to installers, right, there is a huge difference between how much installers are charging. But if there's a co-op in the area, that's a really good opportunity to be able to be getting that discounted rate. And then also, I think, just sharing your experience. I know that you said you didn't pay for your installs. I guess that's a unique experience, but that's how I usually go by doing it. Talking about the solar co-op, if we have one in the area, sharing the rates that usually exist within that co-op or what we expect. And then from there, also sharing at least the basics of why they could be saving money on their electricity bill. Annie, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. I mean, it's even hard for our staff to do that. If people like during an info session, for people will ask that question, right? That's I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Paul. Like it's what people ask. So that we sort of we have a slide that we sort of talk about that's general for each state that speaks to what Lisa said and sort of the general savings for people and the accrual over your lifetime too. And in the lifetime of the system, the fact that you are just at some point you're getting free energy, right? So, and then there's always, we have, and our Go Solar team is also, if somebody's actually interested and wants to really drill down, they can pretty, streamline and pretty efficiently give somebody a better estimate, especially once somebody's gotten bids and has a better idea of the installer that they might be going with, because we can do those comparisons and really, really drill down on the costs and savings for, in conjunction with people, so they don't have to evaluate that on their own. So there is a support system out there to help people figure that out. So.
Thank you, Annie. I'd like to get an example of that or see how that works.
The proposal review or the slide that we usually share during info sessions.
Yeah, just in the intro, but how it amortizes over time and gets to the point where it costs nothing. That's a good story to tell, and I'd just like to have an idea what that would look like.
Yeah, definitely. We can share that slide when we send out the follow-up materials for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, I wonder if I could chime in. This is from Cleveland, Ohio. So we have a smaller solar system, 3.4 kilowatt. We've had it for about 5 years, and the year after we put it in, we added an electric car. And we're a little bit slow here in Ohio. It took a while to realize we're not paying for $3 a gallon gasoline with electricity. So we drive over about 15,000 miles a year, and it's cost us nothing other than we do remote charging, which rarely happens. So you went from saving 6 cents a kilowatt hour or 12 cents a kilowatt hour to $3 per gallon of gas. So we now kneecap friends that ask when they talk about the electrical side, and we just say, look, we drive for free.
Yep. I was going to actually add to that at the end of the day, if you are saving money through your solar panels or with an EV car, at least sharing that perspective, right? So, I can't, for example, I can't know exactly how much you would save, but I know in my experience, I'm no longer paying $3 a gallon for gas and I drive for free, or my electricity bill has gone down $100 a month or whatever it might be. So that can be just really powerful to also.
Well, let's shrunk the amortization down from 5 years to 2 years.
Other questions or comments?
All I can say is that the electric car is the obvious next thing. You're either going to do solar first or you're going to do the EV first, but they fit together perfectly.
It's funny you said that too. So another friend of ours 2 years ago put a 10,000 kilowatt system on his house, and he constantly complained, hey, all I get is credits. And I kept saying to him, well, buy an electric car. Problem solved. And coincidentally, he picked up a Model Y just 2 days ago.
All right.
You rubbed off on him. I'm glad to hear that.
The other thing worth noting, I don't want to keep on harping on electric cars, but mine is a Mitsubishi i-Me. They don't even make them anymore, but they were a marvelous little, like an egg-shaped compact car. I paid all of $7,000 used for this thing. And our other car in the driveway is a Honda Fit, about the same size vehicle, one that my wife owns. And it's about 1/3 the amount of cost to drive per mile on an electric car like that.
Very nice. I would love to see a picture of this car.
Gosh, if I could share it, maybe I could. I don't know how to do that.
Our first electric car was a Miev also.
Really? All right.
It was, and our grandson was like, Grandpa Bob, I want to have an electric car. I said, well, Zach, hold on, we'll sell you this one. And they used it for about 3 years, and then just this year, a tree fell on it.
Oh,
That's some
great
bad luck.
story.
All right. Well, any other questions or comments about solar EVs? Okay, we're going to move on to another gift. So we are going to jump into breakout rooms for about 20-ish minutes, 15, 20 minutes, and just give you all an opportunity to either draft on your computer, piece of paper and pen, your story, or let's say you're working on a campaign right now, the story around that campaign. And then from there, take the first 10-ish, 8 to 10 minutes to draft that, and then take the last 5 minutes for whoever in that group wants to share to be able to share their story. And then we'll come back into the main room to wrap up. And I will be asking one person to share. So just keep that in the back, keep that in your back pocket for the end. But for now, we're going to take some time to connect with each other a little bit more personally and practice our stories. So Annie will be sending the invite for that breakout room shortly.
I realize it separated you out.
Oh yeah, I think someone was on with me, but then they
I
closed.
moved her to a different room. So,
Oh, got it.
let's see, and I've got 2 Clyde. I'm gonna move him over to 1, 2. Yeah, he's joined twice somehow.
Hmm.
Cool. All right, so 808. 8. Do we want to? Because that would be 828. We want to bring them back a little sooner.
Yeah. Let me look at the timing. I was thinking a good like 8 to 10 minutes for closing. So
Okay.
maybe 6 or 8:22. I don't know if Clyde is in this room or not with, oh, thank you.
Yep. I put it in the main chat, but I realized people might not have realized to copy it. Sweet. Nice job.
Thanks.
Uh,
It's always
love it.
nice to actually connect with real folks.
I know, especially when they get into it.
Yeah.
Love it. I know. I do want to see a picture of that ancient EV.
I know.
How sad that a tree fell. That's the only
I
reason.
know.
So sad. Yeah, there's just that. We can actually probably share the mini info session PDF.
Yeah.
Solar 101 to this group because it's probably helpful background information. And it has what Paul was talking about. So
Yeah. I knew that existed. I always lean towards just sharing your experience,
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's
kind
not when you don't have solar, if you don't have solar.
Yeah.
But yes. Yeah, it is so different for everyone.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My dad's office used to be in Rockville, so it's my world.
Funny. Mm-hmm. Are you making yourself dinner after this?
Yep.
Yeah.
Did you already eat?
Yeah. A little while ago. Yeah. Typically right after work.
Nice. I'm actually dog and cat sitting for my dad for a little bit. So I'm not.
I saw you were in a different room, but I wasn't sure if it was just a different room in your house.
Yeah, no.
Somewhere else entirely.
Somewhere else. Dealing with some very old, very old dog and cat.
Oh.
Yeah.
Is your dad on just a pleasure trip, or is he traveling for business, or?
Yeah, him and his girlfriend are visiting her daughter in California.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, but they were like, yeah, very grateful because it's a handful, but it's okay. Well, it's just like they, they're just high, like a lot of meds and
yeah, hard to get somebody else in to take care of them.
Yeah, they had someone before, but like, so they were like not that interested. And this time, I think they retired from last time, just dealing with two very old animals, but they're sweet. So
I know it's not their fault.
Yeah, they're more comfortable here anyway.
Right. Yeah, I know, especially when they get older, it can be stressful to take them out of their own spots.
Yeah,
sure. That's what they're doing.
I know. I actually came in this room because the cat is so loud, like just meows constantly. And I was worried that he would be getting up on the table and like, because he likes doing that, Yeah.
Yeah, I like gauge their energy level before I'm doing something at night, whether I need to close the door. But then I will, like, our house is from 1850, so there's no level surfaces. So the door to the guest room has this huge gap. So I'll just see a paw trying to get, and Franklin gets so upset when I've closed him out and he starts yowling. So it's almost worse to close him out than it is to have him walking around.
That's so cute.
Ridiculous. He doesn't understand he's a cat.
Franklin's such a funny cat. Like he's just always like on you and just
so ridiculous.
Like looking up at you, just desperately wanting attention. It's so cute.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he was hand raised, so he definitely thinks he's human.
By you?
Yeah.
Was he hand raised by you?
Oh, no, he was orphaned in a Hurricane Franklin down in Cozumel, which is how he got his name. So he was rescued when he was a couple of days old. So the woman, the woman from the Humane Society down there raised him. So yeah, I think his people are people, not cats. So although he does get along with Sydney sometimes.
That's so cute.
Well, Morgan's new cat is adorable too. Freya's.
I don't think I.
Oh yeah, I didn't know it either. She didn't say anything, but she posted on the Random Pets channel, which I didn't see. I wasn't even a part of that. I didn't know that channel existed. But then I joined it. We got this cute little black cat named Freya. Super cute. She's wanted one for a while. We were talking about it. She's like, I see your cats all the time and I want one so badly.
And then she got one.
She seems like a little nut.
That's so cute.
Yeah. Pets are fun.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice you have your roommate's dog. It's like all the benefit without the
I'm very attached to Aspen. It's like becoming, because I'm around her more than my housemate is.
Oh yeah.
Because my housemate works at Trader Joe's, like outside the house.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So you're just around all the time.
Yeah. So she's doing, 8-hour shifts, 5 days a week. Not in the house. So Aspen and I have gotten very attached to each other. Yeah. I know. I'm like, oh man. She's older. She's a little older too. She's 8. She doesn't act 8, but
yeah.
It's funny. My other housemate was like, yeah, I was looking for Aspen the other day because her owner closed her bedroom door and usually she's in there. And I couldn't find her. And then I went into your bedroom and she was on your bed on all of my clean clothes.
Perfect.
And she's, of course, because they're, we're not folded, but and she's pretty aloof. Like it took about 6 months. So I think that's also the thing, is she kind of acts a bit like a cat. And so
Yeah.
it's taken a long time for her to feel like, okay, I can trust this person. But now we're like, yeah, we're a little too close. I know.
Yeah, I know all the people who did. I feel like dogs have that way. I mean, dogs do have that way more than cats. Like all these poor animals who spent a year with their humans home, and you know, they have to go back. It's really sad.
I know.
Yeah.
I mean, Aspen thankfully is used to it, but
Yeah.
it is funny because usually one of us is home, but you know, when none of us are home, like she's just, because for so long there was at least someone home. So.
And does your other housemate work outside of the house as well?
She kind of does have and have. She actually works at NREL. I don't know if I ever told you that, but
Oh no, I didn't know
the
that.
National Renewable Energy Laboratory.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah, she's a spectroscopist. She's really smart.
Yes.
Basically does like battery stuff, battery lights.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Very smart.
So she's in the lab some, but she's also home some, but I'm definitely home the most.
Yeah. Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, bye.
Yeah, Axel's a funny cat though. Axel thinks that he like owns the world. I guess cats kind of do that, but
Kind of do. Yeah.
I didn't grow up with cats because my dad was allergic supposedly, but now he lives with one. So
yeah. Well, I was allergic. I never grew up with cats because my dad's allergic and I was allergic, but I definitely grew out of it.
Oh yeah, interesting. Because he could never be around them, and now he's.
Yeah, and even my dad is better. I mean, obviously, when we were growing up, he was an adult already, and he still had pretty bad cat allergies. But I mean, he'll visit, or I'll bring the cats for a week at a time to my parents' house, and he takes allergy meds, and by the end of it, he feels it, but otherwise, so I think it does change for sure.
Yeah.
Your immune system gets worse as you get older.
Yeah, right.
The reaction isn't as bad.
Yeah, that's probably a part of it.
That's what somebody said too about the COVID shot. I don't know if this is true. I was going to look it up and then I didn't end up doing it. It was like the older you are, the weaker your immune system is, so the less likely you were to get a really bad reaction to the vaccine. I was like, is that real?
I don't know. I heard that too, and I was kind of freaked out.
Okay.
Yeah, I did hear that.
I don't know if it's true.
And I was kind of freaked out because, like, you know, my grandma, but she's also like forced to be reckoned with. She's 97 and acts like she's like 50. It's crazy. Actually, younger than that. She was like, "Oh yeah, with daylight savings, I thought I was going to bed at 1 a.m., but it was actually 3."
Oh my God.
She literally stays up till 1 and to 2 a.m. like every night. She's just
I would die.
Wild. I know.
I would shrivel up and die.
I spent like 3 days there, and my friends are always like, "Yeah, it takes you a while to like get back into reality." I'm like, "Yeah," because I'm just living in this like alternative world whenever I go visit. She exhausts me so much more than my regular life. Like, it's crazy. But when she didn't really have any symptoms with the booster or anything, I was like, did it work? You know, but
right. Yeah.
It did.
I'm sure it did.
So.
I'm sure it did. It's funny.
Yeah. But then my mom got really sick with the booster. So
she did with the booster.
Yeah.
That's too bad.
Yeah, she had a really bad night. I don't know. Yeah, she was struggling really badly. I know. I was like, oof, that doesn't make me. Have you gone? I haven't gotten the booster yet.
I'm technically not qualified for it yet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure at some point.
Yeah.
Mike needs to get his. But no.
Yeah.
I got the flu shot in my Tdap a couple of weeks ago, so I'm good for shots for a little bit.
Nice.
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy times, that's for sure.
No, it's nuts.
I was actually supposed to have an appointment yesterday evening, like at 5, for just my health stuff, and the practitioner was exposed to COVID, so
oh no,
got canceled. Knock on wood. Everything's okay. I know. It's been a thing, actually. I had another practitioner who was, so I just have to keep pushing back doctor's appointments because people keep getting exposed, but hopefully they're okay.
Yeah.
I know.
That's not what you wanted.
No, right? I'm lucky though, because I could have, easily seen
there.
them and then they found out the next day kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I was literally on my way and they called me and were like, I just found out. I'm like, well, I'm glad
Oh,
I
wow. Yeah.
didn't make it all the way there. So,
All right, let's see.
anyway.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna
Yeah.
reshare my screen.
Okay. We have somebody in the waiting room, but I will let him in.
Just every Sunday.
Welcome back. Oops, my slide. All right, well, hope those breakout rooms went well and you got to know each other a little bit better and think a little bit more about your story. We're gonna launch a quick poll here just to see how that went. We'd love to know, how do you feel now about sharing your solar story or just drafting a story for an issue you care about? And Annie will be launching that. I will not be able to see it.
It's there, but we still have a couple of people in breakout rooms. They're closing.
Oh, okay.
5 seconds.
Never mind. We will take a breather for a moment.
Recording in progress.
All right. Everybody's cool.
Oh,
Everybody should be back.
Guys, I'm on Zoom.
Everybody should be able to see that poll. Okay.
Loving the cat hanging out in the corner of the screen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she does that. She knows when I'm on the Zoom.
Oh, there's actually two. I didn't even notice the cat behind you, Ben. There's another
Yeah.
cat as well. Again, for some reason, I can't see their name, but a black cat as well.
Oh, I've got one coming. Another one coming up.
Ooh, 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 ooh.
Very nice. They're so cute.
I'm sorry, I muted you by mistake. All right, so let's see. Share those results. So we had 9 people participate in the poll. 5 out of 9, 56% are more confident in sharing your solar story, and we have 56% even more excited to share your solar story.
Great. That is wonderful to hear. And of course, if you're feeling still not sure, you can always reach out to us after the fact. Be happy to chat further about ways to share your story that feels comfortable and confident for you. So. All right, so we just want to let you know, we will send out a toolkit for storytelling that will include the introduction, problem, solution, urgency, action that we went through today. And if you have any questions that come up or comments, you can feel free to reach out to Annie or I at getinvolved@solarunitedneighbors.org. Also, if you haven't shared your solar story, we have a great new website that actually has a bunch of great stories on it that Annie can drop in the chat, but we would love for you to also share your story. And then from there, this gives us an opportunity to be sharing this with other sun supporters and folks who might be interested in going solar and having them really be able to connect with everyday people and people in their community who have already installed. So please don't hesitate to take the time to fill that out. If you go to the webpage itself and you scroll about halfway down, there's a link, I think, that says include your solar story. You can click on that, and then there's 5 steps for sharing your story, sharing pictures, and so on. So we'd love for you to be a part of that. And then this is our last official training, skills training for 2021, because somehow we're moving into 2022, but we will be having a lobby training coming up on January 11th, which will be great timing because many of the legislative sessions start mid-January into February. So if you're interested in advocating for solar policies and want to learn how to effectively lobby your representative, we'd love to have you join for that as well. And then lastly, you can find us on Facebook, our website, Instagram. So if you use any social media platforms and you like connecting in that way, we'd love to connect with you as well. And I would love to close it out with, if there is anyone on the call who is interested in sharing a bit of their story. It's good to finally see all your faces. I only get to see a few folks at a time. So, so my PowerPoint sharing.
Hey, Lisa and everyone. Oh, sorry, George. I unfortunately really wanted to join the training and totally couldn't get out something and missed it. So I was hoping that there's like a recording. I know you said you're just sending out the toolkit. I was hoping that I could like watch it another time.
Definitely. So since you RSVP'd for this training, we send an email out. It will be going out on Friday, and it will include a link to the PowerPoint, the toolkit, as well as the recording of this training.
Okay. Thank you. That's perfect. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for jumping on at the end.
So I didn't really write my story, but I just wanted to share something because I've been presenting my solar story for quite a few years actually. And, you know, it kind of comes and goes and people get interested and want to know, ask a lot of questions. But on Halloween, when I was passing out candy, I had 3 different kids that were probably ranged from 10 to 12 years old. One boy, you know, stopped and he said, "That is so cool that you have solar on your roof. So what does it do for you?" And I said, "Well, I generate about 70% of what I need." So he's like, "So you really save a lot." And then another boy mentioned that, "I just love homes with solar on them." And then a group of girls came up, and there was probably 3 or 4 of them, and they just thanked me for trying to save the planet. And so that encouraged me to consider, and I have done a few solar presentations in schools, but it encouraged me to start reaching out to at least my local school district to offer to do presentations. And so now I want to rewrite it for kids because I have a PowerPoint presentation that I normally use in adult groups, but and I've got a sample solar panel that I got from a professor at one of our local universities that he started a company that makes panels. So I can take that with me. So I just wanted to share that.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. That gives me personally a lot of hope in the future and future generations. So thank you.
Renee, can I ask what state you're in?
Michigan.
Michigan, okay.
Michigan.
Great.
Thanks for joining.
Yeah,
George,
that's a
did
great
you have
story.
George,
Sorry.
I think you're muted. I see. Oh. I think you're still muted. I don't know if you're trying to share.
Yes, I was. Yeah, my bad. The conversation earlier about payback is something I spent a lot of time thinking about in my story. I've got multiple spreadsheets. If I pay cash, if I borrow money at a lower interest than I can invest, if I don't pay anything and I just invest it and keep buying green energy from a supplier, which we're allowed to choose in Pennsylvania. And the answers to payback for me come out to, if you use the sort of the standard metric that a lot of solar installers use of what you cost, what the system costs net of your tax rebates, divided by the amount of savings and SREC sales you expect to get each year. How many years does it go until that turns positive? And in our case, that's almost 12 years, 11.9 years. On the other hand, like I said, if I just kept buying green energy, supposedly through the back end, the magic of markets on the back end, even though I know none of the electrons in my house came from Texas wind. I live in central Pennsylvania. But if I did that and invested my money, it never pays for itself. And then on the other hand, there's the, how do you feel about what you're doing for the planet? And every day when you pull into the driveway, and I think of the, well, first of all, one of the things that pulled my trigger to finally buy it, I've been thinking about this for a long time, and we just had our system installed. It's waiting to be turned on. But one of the triggers was the heat dome out in the Pacific Northwest. And I read about marine invertebrates, intertidal marine invertebrates being killed by whatever, the millions or the billions. And one of my most vivid and pleasant memories from a trip motoring around the Pacific Northwest a couple of years ago was discovering tide pools and all the little creatures that look very different when they're above the water, and they look like encrusted little Spanish olives attached to everything. And then as the water comes up, they open up into little delicate anemones and starfish and such. And I'm also a scuba diver and very interested in coral reefs and things like that. So just the wholesale death of marine ecosystems, and particularly marine ecosystems, kind of pulled my trigger and said, I'm going to do what I can within my sphere of influence. I mean, I can still call legislators. They may or may not respond, but at least I can do it on my house. So in that sense, it pays for itself every day. So the answers are 12 years, never, or every day. As far as when does it pay for itself, and
I love that.
I'm hoping it'll be every day.
Hey George, quick question: Where in central Pennsylvania? I grew up there.
I'm in State College, where Penn State University
That's my hometown.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. And you're in Arizona now.
I'm in Tucson, Arizona. I had enough of Pennsylvania winters.
Yeah, they are.
My father used to teach English at Penn State, and that's where all of us kids grew up and eventually left. But I have to go back. It's so cool that I'm talking to someone from State College today.
Yeah.
Right.
A lot of people do. A lot of people do come back, and a lot of people grow up like my kids and then go away. And then one of them came back. So
I can chime in. My two grandsons, twin grandsons, just started there, George, maybe a month ago.
Uh-huh.
And even though I'm originally from Pittsburgh, I had never been there, so I went up with my daughter for Parents' Day, and what a campus! It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's a
and Michael Mann.
Oh yeah.
Michael Mann's there.
The man.
Exactly.
Yeah, the man.
Yeah, he's a star.
Yeah, when I went to Penn State, we called it Happy Valley.
Yes,
you went to Penn State.
I'm from Lancaster, PA.
My gosh, it's a small world.
Yes, yeah.
Where are you from, Ben? Exactly in PA?
Well, I'm in Tucson, Arizona right now, but I grew up in State College. I was there from age 3 up through about age 23. So I graduated from State College High in 1976. So there's that ages me. Who knew?
I know. Really?
Amazing. I love that. Well, we are just over time, so I want to respect everyone's time and evenings, but I really appreciate each of you connecting and joining this training today. I hope you found it helpful. George, I'm considering including what you said in our follow-up email.
Okay.
I really, if that feels okay for you, I may not, but I'm definitely going to write it down for myself because it definitely hit home. So I appreciate that. And just thank you again, everyone, for, oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry. Is there a way we could get exchange emails with folks in the group?
We usually tend to not send them all out, but if there are individuals who you specifically want to connect with and they're okay with it, then I'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm generally fine with that.
Oh, heck
Okay.
yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, I should just really quickly mention, I connected with Solar United through Yara Marin here in Arizona. And Yara and I have talked a couple of times, once on the phone at least. And some of the folks from Solar United are going to help me out in March. I'm going to be putting together an exhibit at the Tucson Festival of Books, which will have hundreds of thousands of people looking at things like the electric car that I've got parked there with solar panels plugged into it. So I definitely want to connect with people in this organization, especially if you're going to be in Tucson in early March.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing.
Sorry,
Thank
I'd
you
like
for
to know more about that then,
Yeah.
because I'm
Awesome.
not too far away.
Well, just Google Tucson Festival of Books, Science City, and that's where I'm going to be. That's where I'm going to be, and that I think it's like March 12th or 13th, whatever that weekend is. Yeah.
Okay. March 12th. Cool.
Don't quote me on those days, but Tucson Festival of Books, it's on the internet. You'll find it.
Okay, great.
Mm-hmm.
Great. And Rick, I saw that George, Cliff, I think rose his hand, and also Ben were interested in connecting. So I'd be happy to connect the four of you.
Awesome.
So, yeah. Well, thank you so much, everyone. Again, really appreciate it. Great to connect, and we hope to see you soon.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.